sorry, I'm just trying to overload this truck and create a hazard along the roadway. There has to be some level of understanding. So we work closely with them to make sure that we're instituting our directions appropriately and not just out there writing citations out because we can. So
No, thank you for that. And just another piece of education is, you gave the scenario, if the semi has to slam on the brake because somebody cut them off and the load does shift, those violations stay with the driver, not necessarily the company.
Yeah.
So this, in other types of violations, probably the high majority of the violations you are issuing stick with the driver and not the company in which they're working for. So, I would like to educate and alleviate, because we don't want to hinder. I mean, we need those truck drivers out there. So,
And unfortunately, we do have, not everyone's very responsible. Some are out there driving trucks that really, they shouldn't be pulling out of a parking lot, much less driving on our interstate system. So, like anything else, you get a reputation here is to making certain that your trucks are properly loaded, equipment is properly working. At the end of the day, we just want safe roads. And everybody wants that. We don't want to have fatality crashes anywhere here in Racine County. If we can reduce those numbers of fatal crashes, that's what it's all about. We have a lot of deputy presence up along the interstate, and over the years, if you look at statistically, we have drastically reduced the number of fatality crashes along our interstate system. And it is because having law enforcement up there doing what they're supposed to be doing, stopping people. Speed, as you know, kills, and then of course we have a whole other problem with drug traffickers and other people who are doing bad things. But at the end of the day, we need those men up there and the women up there to make those arrests when it's appropriate. But we do exercise good common sense as well along the way. Last one, another bragging right here is internet crimes against children. This one is near and dear to me. When I was in investigations, I had the opportunity to work with the state back in the day when internet crimes against children really started to, people are like, well, what's going on with that? What's happening with that? Computers were just starting to really get out there and people are getting on the internet. And it was really gratifying when you can take somebody off the street who is coming here to meet a child for the purposes of engaging in sexual activities. Our ICAC unit, I pushed for this. There's a lot of equipment, a lot of training. You can see they received multiple awards, 57 arrests. Is just amazing. They were recently recognized by the state for their hard work. It is a very mentally exhausting job to be able to look at these horrific images that people download and share. I once heard someone say in court that, Your Honor, this was a victimless crime. They were just simply looking at and sharing child pornography. And when I testified, I couldn't disagree with that more. Every time that image is shared, that victim, that child, is victimized again, again, and again. So this nonsense that's a victimless crime doesn't hold water for me. And it seems to me that doesn't hold water for the judges. The judges are laying down some pretty stiff sentences on these individuals, and rightfully so. I couldn't be more proud of the men and women back there. They're doing a wonderful job. We have a great tech that works back there. She's been amazing. I think recently we had to visit the finance department because we wanted to make sure that we're properly paying for that level of expertise. I mean, going through phones, and that person can go work for a corporation someplace and make loads more money than they could doing this. So we want to make sure that our pay was appropriate, which this board graciously agreed. And we have, I believe, probably one of the best teams in the state right now. If I was out there engaging this type of behavior, I would be very fearful of Racine County because they're relentless going after these typically men that are involved in this. So 57 arrests, I think, speaks volumes of their work productivity. Every time I see them, they're going out on another warrant, another warrant, another warrant. So, and if you talk to Trish Hansen, she'll tell you that it's keeping her very busy with these arrests. I wish it wasn't like that. I shouldn't chuckle when I say that because it's disgusting that we have this problem. But if you think about technology in our own personal lives, how we all embrace it, it's great. Our children love it. But unfortunately, there are perverts out there that are on the other end posing to be somebody they're not, hoping to meet somebody and do horrific and horrible things. So I applaud the work that they do. I wish this wasn't a societal problem that we have, but unfortunately, this is what we have. As long as we have technology, we're going to have people that are going to abuse it and try to use it to their own advantage.
thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I see this is the last slide for that.
That's
So
the
I
last
do
slide.
want to open it up for questions if
Absolutely.
you're okay for those. Committee, questions? Anyone? 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 You did that thorough of a job. Come on. No? Are we good?
They're saving it for budget time.
Yeah.
She's on me.
Well,
I might be sick
no.
that night.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'll
Well,
be there. I'll answer your questions, I promise.
no, very good. I really appreciate it. And Michael Lansdorf does a good job. And we're going to start having this at the beginning of every election cycle. And then for the new youth and governance, he is going to come and educate, especially this committee, on how we work with the constitutional offices like yours. I mean, as of right now, when you have new items that come before us, like the scanners you talked about, or when you piloted the cameras, from the holsters and stuff, it came before this committee, but other than that, it's like, well, what other responsibilities do we have with our constitutional officers and offices? It's not much, but we do have a piece in this too, just to make sure that we're able to equip the sheriff's department with what they need. So thank you for this overview and this education. I hope it's been helpful. And one last going, any questions? Can you believe you have no questions for your department? We have never, okay, go ahead.
What percentage of the OWIs do you guys see that are not alcohol related as of recently?
That changes often. So I couldn't give you an exact percentage today. I haven't looked at it recently. I've done a lot of work. There's different levels of field sobriety testing that's done at the state level that you can be trained at. There's SFSTs, there's ARIDE, and then there's a DRE. I've done all of the training that you can do all the DRE level of training. I would tell you that the majority of OWIs for us are probably alcohol related. I can look for numbers and see if we can vet out or suss out for you kind of what that's breaking down like over the years. But I can tell you this, and one of the scary parts is that when we do see drug use, it used to be that we would see singular drug use. People would be on marijuana, maybe they were on cocaine, they were on maybe heroin, but now what we see is something called polydrug use. And the polydrug use is people don't just use one thing anymore. The sheriff talked earlier about people pressing stuff into pills. Yeah, that happens often, and what you get a lot of times is multiple things pressed into one pill. One of the things that I saw years ago when I was on patrol was people were smoking, remember K2 and the spice craze. That was getting laced with all kinds of stuff, and when you saw the production facilities, it was nothing more than somebody in their garage taking a pump sprayer they used for poison the day before to kill grass and spraying it across just spices they bought from the store and then selling it to kids and saying, hey, smoke this. And that was the drug getting sprayed onto that. And if anybody's ever used one of those, a little bit drip here and a little bit spray there. This one's really strong, that one's really weak. And what is that going to do when somebody's trying to use it? The drug market is incredibly dangerous and increasingly so daily. So I know it doesn't exactly answer your question, but I think that gives you some of the information.
No, that's great. So my court clerk said that she noticed that there's a increase in the OWIs being drug use versus alcohol. And then we were recently at the municipalities conference for the sessions we were in. They were talking about the THC, vape shops, how kids can just go in and get a bag of, gummies. It's not being regulated, so there's some legislation there. But they also showed a device that, can go into vehicles or whatever, where they can scan to see some of this. Are you familiar? I didn't write down what it was, but are you guys familiar with it?
I've seen some of the different devices out there. There's a lot of struggle in identifying drug use in the human body without significant amount of testing. So I think that with AI and where we're going with technology, you're going to see some incredible advancements, as we've all seen through a lot of the stuff we've brought in front of this board. I think where we're going is going to be incredible and hopefully leads to a safer community.
We can see if we can get you some stats the next time we meet. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I do have one. You did mention early on that we'll be seeing during the budget process these 3 positions that you'll be requesting. So I envision, and maybe I'm off and maybe I need to be educated on this, that the sheriff's department helps fill in when there's calls of service and they need extra hands as well. So I just envision the department comes to the rescue to give more manpower. What happens when the sheriff's department doesn't have manpower? Are you faced with that? Is that what the request is? Do we not have enough to do backup?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And what I always, we talk to the chiefs all the time in our county and also around the state, and I haven't met one agency, whether it be a sheriff or a police chief, who says, I have enough staff to get the job done. Everyone leans on each other during times of crisis and times of need, and at the end of the day, we get it done. So sometimes are we stretch thin? Absolutely. But if there's a missing child in the city of Racine and Chief Ramirez calls me, I'm going to give him everything I have to, I'll run thin somewhere else to make sure we try to bring safe resolve to bring that child home. So it's hard to say that any given day what could happen, but for the most part, we try to take care of our own business, but we're always there to help when people need assistance. Sturtevant right now is undergoing, some staffing issues, and I've committed to assisting them to help them get to a level of answering calls for service timely. I told their board, the last thing I want is a citizen who calls for help and no one comes, or they come too late. So I want to make sure that we are there to assist them to the extent we can. We can't be all things to everybody, but we can at least help out. So Mount Pleasant knows that about us. Caledonia knows that. City of Racine certainly does. They've been a recipient of our assistance for a while. Burlington, all the agencies in Racine County know they can help, and I've got a great relationship with the surrounding sheriffs as well. I can call upon Sheriff Zerner right now, and he would send me everything he has, and I would do the same for him, and I wouldn't get a bill from him either. We had a tornado years ago in Union Grove, and Sheriff Beth was the sheriff then. I didn't even have to call. Sheriff Beth was watching the news. He sent a supervisor and 12 squads to answer calls while our deputies were taking care of people who lost their roofs and people who needed medical attention and roads that we couldn't pass because the wires were down. He knew that, so he sent people in and said, hey, we'll just answer your calls for service. You guys take care of your emergency. That's the kind of relationship that we have with our surrounding areas. And did I get a bill from Sheriff Beth? No, didn't send us a bill. And we don't send him one either when he calls for assistance. So it is a give and take. Law enforcement works better when it works together. And one last thing I'd like to just offer the board is, you always have an open invite. You want to do a ride along or come walk through our jail facility or the courts. You want to spend an 8-hour day with a correctional officer or a deputy sheriff, be my guest. You want to spend a couple hours? That's great. We are a 24/7, 365 operation. We can fit everyone's schedule. So if you have some time and you want to come do a ride along or come walk through the jail, bring us up. We'll do that for you. And it really kind of fills in the voids. It's one thing for me to come up here and just babble all night and talk about what the things we do and all the rest. But when you're paired up with a deputy, you get to talk to that deputy or that correctional officer and learn a little bit about them and learn about their challenges and what they face on a day-to-day basis and the equipment needs. And you actually see some of the equipment that you voted for in use. So I think that's really invaluable. So please, if you haven't done one or you want to do another, the offer is there. We have nothing to hide. We're as transparent as we can be. Come on, ride with us. I don't care what time of day it is. We'll let you ride with anybody you want, whenever you want.
Well, I can contest to that invitation that you put out, and then the gracious captain here allowed me to tag along, and I was able to go and play around with some equipment that I have never touched in my life, so that was fun. So,
But it's
and-
eye-opening.
yeah, it really is.
Yes,
So, yeah, and they did a very generous job of giving me their time to try to make me get a little pulse of what's going on. So thank you. Anything else? Any questions? All right. Okay, yes, please, Prisker.
I do have one question. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. This might be a dumb question, but do you have reporting that I'm sure you do internally, but I'm just curious to know, like, the number of calls that you do and the average response times, and I'm sure you break it down into some sorts of categories. I couldn't even think off the top of my head what the categories are, but is that something that you could provide to the board once in a while, or do you provide any breakdown to the underlying municipalities just so they can kind of see, like, everyone's just paying their property taxes at the end of the year, and I think in general they think you're doing a good job, but just providing some of the data might help. Like, a lot of the information you provided today was pretty eye-opening. I had no idea that that the equipment on the interstate had resulted in so many citations and stops already in just the short time it's been in force. So
We
you
certainly do.
you internally, I'm sure, have all this information, but
We do share that typically at budget time. We have an annual report which outlines the number of arrests that we make and all the rest, but we don't have to wait to the end of the year to talk about those things. I would be more than happy to calculate those things and send them out and maybe give a report periodically, perhaps a quarter report. I don't know if that's That's something internally we could do without too
Absolutely.
much trouble. Yeah, so we could certainly do that, but typically we compile everything at the end of the year and say, okay, here's how many calls for service, average response time, here's how many like ICAC arrests we made, here's how many drug arrests we made, here's how many pounds of this we collected. We break it right down to from heroin to marijuana to cocaine and all these things that we do, how many search warrants we executed, how many SWAT calls we've had. I mean, we really get down to the nitty gritty because I want to know. And you want to know. This is where the money's being spent, and you have constituents who are asking you questions, and I want you to be informed to be able to answer them appropriately.
I'll have to look at it. If you're already creating that, I think annually is probably fine.
It's online. Our year-end report gets published online every year.
Okay, I'll look at that. Is there anything that breaks it down by municipality at all? I'm just curious to know, because,
Report should have there should be some geo in there.
We'll break it down by
I'm
our
asking
contract
selfishly, I'm
areas.
like, in my district, or
Yeah.
what,
So like Union
How
Grove
many
as
of
an
those are-
example, we have a contract with Union Grove, and we give them stats for Union Grove because, they want to know how many hours being spent on arrests, how many people we arrested and how many OWI arrests. So we break it down very much for those, but I think we can kind of put a little geo piece in there and by municipality and see what we're doing because
right,
there is
so
a
some
code
contract
attached to
like
it.
Town of Burlington does, but then you
Exactly.
have your, what do you call just the regional or area,
The areas.
area squads, yeah.
Yeah, area squads.
They're also responding.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we've exhausted our agenda, so I'm going to call the meeting at 6:01. Thank you so much.
How did I do, Supervisor Kelly? 1 minute after.